valve adjustment. This thing's the 2ZR.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you follow the service manual, you can do it without any instructions, but you'll be kind of slow and it's not always really clear. So one of the first steps, and you got to pull it apart. So if you guys look, you can see you got the valve cover off here. And let's say that we're going to set valve lash on cylinder number 1. Service manual says set cylinder 1 to top dead center compression, and then you're going to go down there and you're going to struggle to see the marks, and it's just going to be a pain. And basically what you're trying to do is find that timing mark. Like we've been doing all this engine work, so you should be fairly familiar. There's going to be a mark where your crankshaft indicates it's on TDC. But I want you to think about something. TDC occurs twice every 2 revolutions, you understand? So now Renee, if you look in here, and you guys can generally see, if you look, you got this cam over here and this cam over here. This cam is the intake cam. Who knows how I know that? You know it doesn't have an eye on it. I don't know. Intake's on this side. That's it. It's not even really that complicated. And then this side is the exhaust side, because look, there's your manifold. So I go ahead and I look at this, and my intake cam lobes are kind of pointed like out in this direction. So if they're pointed in this direction to the right, is the valve open or is it closed?
Closed.
Exactly. But now look at the exhaust valve, the exhaust cam. The exhaust cam is facing down. So if the exhaust cam is facing down, what's up with those? So if those exhaust valves are open, are we ready to set the valve lash? Right, so you got to picture the cam, right? The cam has the base circle. You remember that part? You have to have the cam on the base circle. Now this doesn't have push rods, it doesn't have anything like that. What it has is those buckets. So it's got an actual bucket, and on top of the bucket it's got a shim. So when you turn the cam to the base circle, you should be able to take a feeler gauge and slide a feeler gauge in there, and technically it shouldn't even be touching. But to your eyes, you'll look and be like, it's still touching, but on the base circle there will technically be a little bit of a gap right there. Kind of makes sense? So when you go to do the job, you spend all this time getting the mark lined up perfect on the crank, and then you're like, time to set it, and your intake goes great, and then your exhaust is like, you can't fit it. You can't fit the feeler gauge because it's on the lobe. You understand? On the lobe meaning it's pushing the valves open. So if we were to look at this one, at this spot, if you wanted, you could knock out cylinder number 1 intake. Actually, you could probably knock out cylinder 2 exhaust. You could do cylinder number 3 intake, and you could do cylinder number 4 exhaust. If you guys want, get a quick peek over here and see if you follow my logic, right? You could probably set these, because see, it's not on the cam. You could probably set these because it's not ramping. These for sure, this is perfect. If you can get, quote, the noses or, you know, the cam lobes opposite of the buckets, that's the perfect, this is in the perfect position to slide the feeler gauge in there. And same with that number 4 exhaust, right? So those are ready. So if you want to do this kind of quick, you could go ahead and knock those 4 out, and then you could turn the crankshaft, because it's hard to turn the crank. You got to roll around. You guys have been struggling a little bit. So if you just do those 4 and then you turn it to a point where all the other ones are in a good enough position to be able to set the valves, you can do the job a lot faster. Now let's pick the number 1 about that. Renee, do you know the spec? 7 thousandths or something?
I have it pulled up on TIS.
Mario, check that spec out for us and then grab the feeler gauges. And you guys all take a nice step back so I can feel more comfortable. I don't like everybody all up in my business. Hold that. You'll be calling numbers. Let me know. Look it up. You see where it says adjust valve clearance, right? Look up the intake valve, and then I'm gonna make a plan for my feeler gauges. You can see these gauges over here. Make sure you're looking at me. 10. I don't know. I'm guessing maybe about 7.
0.15 to 0.25.
For intake? Oh yeah. Don't give me no millimeters.
Okay.
Here in America, we speak American. To give me thousandths.
6 thousandths.
Okay.
10 thousandths.
Okay, 6 to 10. So I'm gonna say as a minimum, let me go with the 6, right? So I'll bust out the feeler gauge. If you could see 6 thousandths. I don't want to hear no millimeter talk. You can see it, kind of. Yeah, you can see reflections. There you go. Yeah, you definitely got a shot of it there. Oh, this is the wrong one. I'm showing you the wrong thing here. Where's my finger? Oh, it's over there. Okay, this one. 6, yeah, you saw it.
Right there.
All right, so 6 would be the minimum. So now when I go to do, you gotta become one with the gauge. Remember the lesson? little. Now with all you around me, I ain't closing my eyes. But to do it, you have to have so much focus. Eyes closed would be better. Go for this, and look, no problem. Easy. See how easy that is? Well, that means it in a 6. If it was a 6, there would at least be a little bit more drag. So we're gonna bump it up. And honestly, if this was, you know, a customer job, and if it's over 6, all we're really worried about is it being too loose. So what was the spec? 6 to 10? Yeah. All right, so let's go for a 10. If it won't take the 10, we're in spec. Now, if you want to be OCD, you can be like, well, I want them all at 8. Okay, but to do this at 8, let me explain to you what's going to have to happen. All right, here's the 10. This one's a brass one. That's kind of cool. So that one's non-magnetic. We'll go with the 10. Okay, it won't take the 10. So that valve is in spec right there. Go ahead and I'll try the second valve on that number 1. It won't take the 10. Let's say it did take the 10. Look down here real close. What do you guys think we'd need? Do you see an adjustment? Do you see a screw? Do you see a lock nut? Right. That's the bucket. Exactly. So what we'd have to do, we'd lift the cam up, magnet the shim out of there, measure the shim, and then change the shim size. So let's just say, okay, let's just say we measured 12 thousandths right here, but we want it below 10. If you measure 12, do we need a smaller shim or a bigger shim?
A smaller.
Smaller's right, because that shim takes up the space, right? So if it's got, did I say it has 12?
Yeah.
Oh, it's got 12. That's too much space. We need a thicker shim.
Oh, I think so.
Okay, so it's got 12 thousandths of space. We want less space. I need to move my thumb up. I need to move my thumb up by adding a shim to the bottom of my thumb to tighten it up. So let's say we were to pull the shim out, you were to measure it, then you would have to find a shim that's maybe, I don't know, let's say 4 thousandths thicker, and that would get you from a 12 clearance to about an 8, right? If you think about it like that. That's how I would do it. Okay, and then let's say we're ready to do the exhaust. What should we do to get ready for this exhaust? Take a look over here, Renee. I'm going to try to slide any feeler gauge. You know it won't possibly take a feeler gauge. How come? You got to turn it. Exactly. Yeah, you know what? Mario, you were the guy turning the crank, right?
I was.
You're rehired, so Mario is going to be the real homie. And we're going to have you turn the engine, probably going to be pretty close to 360. When you turn the crankshaft turns a half, and we needed about a half. All right, you see the movement? Looking good. It's hard to turn, huh?
Yeah.
If you want to make it easier, you can pull the spark plugs out. They're already out, aren't they? Actually, I don't think they were.
No.
I saw the paper towels with the
No,
spark plugs.
they're
Right.
not.
Keep going. A little more. Brandon, what's our exhaust spec?
Between 10 and 14.
Okay. Anybody notice this has a bigger spec? Any thoughts as to why?
Because it gets hotter.
Exactly. The exhaust valves are going to be a lot hotter, so there's going to be more clearance so that they don't get held open. Mario, a little bit more? A little more? I'm pretty happy with that. So if you guys look at that exhaust now, you notice the cam lobes are upward, so we're on the base circle of the cam. And the max is a 14, so I'm gonna go right for the 14. If you guys want, you can get in here nice and make sure you look. Okay, a 14 it won't take. It will not take a 14, but it could be as tight as a 10 and be normal. So I'm gonna go for the 10. Okay, it takes the 10. It's between 10 and 14, it's in spec. You wanna know exactly how much clearance it is, then you gotta keep searching. So I'm gonna go with maybe, I don't know, we'll go right in the middle. Let's say a 12. So I just got to find the 12. 11. I'll tell you what, I got the 11, so let me try the 11. In fact, I think it's going to be bigger than that because it took the 10 really easy. So here's the 12. Oh, that's the money right there. Put a little oil on there. Get in there. Close your eyes. Make sure you trust everybody. And then you should just feel it's just right. It's like you could feel the cam on the top side. You could feel the bucket and shim on the bottom side. It's just like you do. That's 12 thousandths. So if you want to know the number, there it is. But all we really need to know if it's in spec. Roberto, go ahead.
Is it supposed to like take some of it off? Or?
Just like it adds a little bit of lubrication. So like if you're trying to shove this in and it's kind of like metal on metal, it's going to give you a false reading of it's too tight. Whereas like, it's just right. Now, let's say that we had to change one of the shims. Do you guys really understand what's involved? Exactly.
Finding
So
chain.
what you might be able to do, which is probably not how it calls for in the service manual, make a mark on this sprocket to the cam, and then you might be able to like unbolt this sprocket, kind of wire it up maybe to the hood latch, and then kind of hold over here, and then be able to pull, not have to necessarily pull the timing cover. By the book, a lot of times you got to pull the timing cover. You know that's a huge nightmare of a job. Okay, so you might be able to get away with that, and it's designed for that. That's why it has these little half moon circles, so you can actually get at the bolt. So then you got to reset the timing up and all that type of stuff, torque the cams down. So it's a valve adjustment inspection, not that big of a deal. Putting new shims in, big deal. Make sense? Any questions? No more questions. Okay.